You're listening to Holy Lives, Inspiring Stories. This podcast is brought to you by Paulines Multimedia. Discover the saints. Be inspired to live like one. Welcome to Holy Lives, Inspiring Stories. Today we're talking about a man whose holiness didn't come from preaching or power, but from something as simple as a broom. Saint Martin de Porres.
Yes, the humble friar from Lima, Peru. I love how his story reminds us that even the simplest work can become an act of love.
Exactly. He didn't have wealth or fame. He wasn't a bishop or scholar. He was just Martin, a man who found God in the ordinary.
And that's what makes him so relatable. He was born in 1579, the son of a Spanish nobleman and a freedwoman of African descent. Back then, being of mixed race meant facing prejudice everywhere.
Even from some in the church, yet Martin never turned bitter. Instead, he responded with compassion right from the start.
There's this story that as a child, he'd spend hours caring for the poor and healing injured animals. He didn't have much, but whatever little he had, he shared.
That heart of mercy never left him, and that's what drew him to the Dominican friary in Lima, right?
Yes, though it wasn't easy. Because of his race, he wasn't allowed to become a full friar. But Martin didn't give up. He simply said, "Then let me serve." So he joined as a lay helper, sweeping floors, cooking, and caring for the sick.
And he did it all with joy. Imagine spending years sweeping and treating that broom like a prayer.
He used to say, "Humility is the broom that keeps the soul clean." Isn't that beautiful?
It is. And that broom became his symbol. They called him the saint with the broom. But it wasn't just about cleaning. It was about loving. Every small task became his way of serving God.
I love that quote of his. "Compassion is preferable to cleanliness. With a little soap, I can wash away dirt. But even with tears, I cannot wash away a lack of charity."
That line goes straight to the heart. He really understood holiness, not as perfection, but as love in action.
And that love began to work quiet miracles. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, and even the animals seemed drawn to his gentleness.
Oh yes, the story of the mice.
My favorite. When the friars complained that the mice were stealing food, Martin didn't set traps. He talked to them. He said, "Dear little brothers, please don't cause trouble. I'll feed you in the garden." And the mice actually listened.
Only Martin could make peace with mice, but that story shows his heart, gentle, respectful, full of harmony.
Exactly. His love was big enough for everyone, people, animals, the poor, the outcast. He never saw himself as above anyone.
When people praised him, he'd say, "I am only a poor mulatto." But his soul was richer than most kings.
And then there's that story of the man he carried into the monastery.
Yes, a poor, injured man he found on the street. Even though the rules said no outsiders were allowed inside, Martin brought him in to care for him.
When a friar scolded him, he simply said, "Forgive me, I didn't know the rule of charity was limited by a doorway."
That line always gives me chills.
Same. It says everything about him. Mercy first, always.
He truly lived the gospel, not by preaching, but by serving. That's why people called him the Saint of Charity.
And his charity reached everyone: orphans, prisoners, nobles, servants. To Martin, every person was family.
He even started a small hospital in Lima, caring for the sick with herbs and prayer. He'd work late into the night, then wake up early to sweep the floors again.
That's humility in action. He never separated prayer from work. Both were expressions of love.
And that's why his life still speaks today. He shows us that holiness isn't about doing great things. It's about doing small things with great love.
I love that. Makes me wonder, what's my broom? What's the simple thing God might want to use in my hands?
Beautiful question. Our broom could be anything. Our work, our time, our patience, whatever we offer with love becomes holy.
Yes, because love doesn't need a stage. It can hide in the quiet corners, in kindness, in service and humility, and still change the world.
That's exactly what Martin did. His life was one long act of quiet love, and that's what made it powerful.
Now he's remembered as the patron saint of racial harmony, barbers, and social justice, but also, I think, of everyday kindness.
Right. He took the divisions of his time, race, class, pride, and just swept them away with love.
It's a beautiful image. Martin with a broom, not just cleaning floors, but clearing space for grace.
I love that. He shows us that sanctity doesn't always shine. Sometimes it just serves.
Yes, because in the end, holiness might not wear a crown. Sometimes it just carries a broom.
And that's the heart of Holy Lives, inspiring stories.
Through their lives, we see that the saints weren't distant heroes. They were real people whose love still lights the way.
And St. Martin de Porres reminds us that holiness begins in the smallest, simplest acts, done with great love.
Thanks for joining us today on Holy Lives, Inspiring Stories.
Discover the saints.
Be inspired to live like one.